American, one of our most cherished traditions in the fall is to go and watch our favorite team play football. We get dressed up in our team's colors and we go and we eat a whole bunch of junk food. In the stands, as we cheer and we scream and we hoot and we holler for our team, one thing we're not thinking about is how physical the players are getting with one another. What may seem like a bump on the head to us can actually be a life-altering injury for the players. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, also known as CTE, is caused by multiple concussions and leads to deterioration of the brain. CTE has many effects on the body. It can change the way a person thinks. It can increase suicidal thoughts and even actions, as well as impairing someone's motor control. According to the New York Times, 87% of all NFL football players experience some symptoms of CTE and or have it. Frontline in 2002 did an article on Mike Webster. Mike Webster was a Steeler football player and he played for over 20 years. He died at age 50 from what most believed to be a heart attack. His autopsy performer, Dr. Bennett Unwall, believed that there was much more to Mike Webster's death. He put his own personal funds into the autopsy and found that Mike Webster actually had signs of CTE, and that led to his heart failure and the lack of protein that his heart had. Dr. Bennett also wrote a book about CTE and its effects on the body and its connection to all NFL football players. Dr. Bennett's book led to 47 rule changes in the NFL playbook. It influenced new helmet design, as well as taking the option to get back on the field away from the players. There's someone on the sidelines the player has to see and talk to and be examined by before he can decide to go back into the game. Here's a picture of a healthy brain on the top compared to a CTE damaged brain on the bottom. As you can see, the atrophy on the bottom and the shrinking of the brain is quite significant. The healthy brain up here looks big and healthy and very light, as the unhealthy brain looks dark, small, and damaged. Some might think that the NFL and college football teams play a lot rougher than high school. That's not true. According to the CDC study they did in 2016, the mortality rate annually for high school students is much higher than the mortality rate of NFL players. The death rate for high schoolers is 2.4% compared to the NFL's death rate being 0.4%. Dylan Thompson was one of these high schoolers that fell victim to the game. When asked if he can continue playing, there was no one on the sidelines to check him out or evaluate him who was certified enough to say, "You need to sit out." Instead, the coach gave him the option to keep playing, and of course he took it. He wasn't going to let his team not get a victory just because he hit his head. 15 minutes after hitting his head, he fell on the field and collapsed. He was rushed to the emergency room where he died en route. During his autopsy, when examining his brains, there were signs of developing CTE, and he was only a sophomore in high school. As Americans, we romanticize football rather than thinking about how deadly the game can be. We need to put the health and safety of our youth just in the same level as the health and safety of our NFL favorite football players. The NFL rule changes have not been passed down to the high school level. The high schoolers are still wearing helmets that probably their great-grandfather have worn, whereas the NFL players have helmets with much more padding and cost a lot more money. We need to make sure our youth are being protected just as well as our NFL football players. So during this speech, I hope you learned a little bit more about CTE and the effects that football can have on the human body and the seriousness of the game. So next time you're in the audience cheering and woohooing and your team is hopefully winning, just think about all the changes that have been made so that the game can be a little more safe. Thank you, and here's my audience.